Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our meeting of September the 22nd. Welcome to fall. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here with us today. I'm sorry we're a couple of minutes late getting started, but we'll get started right away. I would remind you all, if you could, to put your phone on silent or turn it off, and let you know that the meeting today is now being live streamed. So welcome to all of those who you're watching from home. Please ensure that your microphone, if you are joining us, please ensure that your microphone is muted when you're not speaking. And also, I want to let you know that public comments made during this meeting are audio and video recorded and shall form part of the public record and will be retained in accordance to the town's retention bylaw. And you can get more information about that bylaw from clerk's office. So with that, I will also then just take a moment and welcome Mike Melanishin. Mike Melanishin is our interim CAO. This is his first meeting as interim CAO, and I want to thank him very much for being with us today and for taking on this task along with his many, many other tasks that he does for the town. So thank you for your leadership, Mr. Melanishin. Next, we will go to open forum, and I'll ask the clerks if there has been anybody that has listed. It looks like we have no one listed for open forum today. That takes us to item 3, which is the approval of the agenda. And we've had 3 pieces of correspondence that have come in past the date that we distributed the agenda. So we need 2/3 majority according to our procedural bylaw to add these items. And could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Feller and Deputy Mayor Davidson, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Sorry, just a moment. I'm just having a quick, we have quorum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we're just missing Councillor Nicol, but I'm sure he'll join us shortly. Oh no, he's there. Who are we missing then?
Councillor Waters and
Councillor Waters. Okay.
and Payne.
Thank you. I'm sure we did have a closed session meeting before this that ended right at the crack of 7 o'clock. So I'm sure they'll be joining us very shortly. All right, we'll go forward then to item 4, disclosures of interest. Is there anyone who has a disclosure of interest? Seeing none, we'll move forward to item number 5, presentations and petitions. We have none this evening, so we'll go into delegations, which is item number 6. And our first delegation is from Mr. John Scorbahonch and Ms. Angela Gravel regarding Phragmites. So I'd welcome you both if you'd like to turn on your video, and our procedural bylaw allows for 10 minutes, so please, whenever you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you. So good evening, everyone, Your Worship, Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor Davidson, and members of Town Council. My name is Angela Gravel, and also with me tonight is my spouse, John Scorbahonch. We live at 1707 Wilkinson Street, and we are representing ourselves tonight and a number of our residents in the neighborhood with their permission. We're here tonight to express our ongoing disappointment and frustration and concerns respecting the lack of a council-approved Phragmites control and eradication plan pertaining to the spraying of roadside ditches to combat Phragmites in our community using a commercial-grade chemical pesticide called Roundup, which also contains high concentrations of glyphosate. Monsanto is the company that originally manufactured Roundup. It recently sold to Bayer under mounting class action lawsuits in the US, and now some of those lawsuits are actually starting here from Canada. For those of you who may not know, Bayer is a giant chemical and pharmaceutical company, and they bought Monsanto for $63 billion, including the litigation. And according to 2020 press reports, Bayer reached settlements with claimants in what has been called the largest settlements in US civil litigation. So Bayer actually put aside $10 billion to deal with the claims that the herbicide Roundup causes cancer. And we know that maybe some of you members of council have expressed some surprise by our most recent communications with the town. And some folks have even suggested that you were maybe not aware of some of our concerns. However, we have been raising our concerns since 2018, and 4 of you actually sat on council and were sitting members of council at that time. And we feel that our concerns have been dismissed by council and from the administration. Back in 2019, we again corresponded with this council as well as to the town to express our concerns regarding the town's chemical spraying program as you attempted to deal with Phragmites in our community. And of course, now we're here before council because last month, again, we had more spraying of Roundup in random locations on our street, which also happened to be within 30 meters of our private well water. And of course, directly in front of our water retention ponds in our neighborhood. So at this time, we can only conclude that this council and your administration is content to ignore the concerns raised by your citizens as you continue to play what we consider to be a toxic chemical in areas in which we think that you're placing significant risk to human health as well as to our natural environment. And so late this morning, we actually did receive numerous documents, which we appreciate from the town, from administration, with regards to our longstanding request for information. And as a result of that information just received today, we have decided to modify our presentation. But now I'm going to turn that over to you. Okay, so thank you so much. Next slide, John.
Yeah, thanks very much. And again, good evening, members of council. So what we're talking about is the picture right in the very center of the screen, which is called Phragmites. And all of these photographs represent invasive plant species according to the Nature Conservancy of Canada. Can I have the next slide, please? I'm going to move through these fairly quickly. Obviously, this is your water treatment plant. And again, here's Phragmites right in front of the water treatment plant. Next slide. Wastewater treatment plant. Here's a wastewater treatment plant. And again, Phragmites, again, adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant. Next slide, please. Here is Innisfil Beach Park, and clearly you can see Phragmites have invaded Innisfil Beach Park in a big way. I don't see any of the spraying that's taking place in residential areas in proximity to the beach. But again, you've got a challenge with regards to Innisfil Beach Park. Next slide, please. And again, throughout the community, there are large stands of Phragmites that have invaded a lot of the wetland areas of the community. Next slide, please. And again, in our neighborhood, this is what we're facing. So these are shots of Phragmites that continue to appear in our neighborhood. And you can see some of the signs on the right side that indicate these areas have been sprayed. Next slide, please. And again, on Tuesday, August the 17th, there's the contractor's vehicle. This photograph comes from our security camera from our front door. And you can see the circled areas where they placed one of the signs with regards to the spraying of Roundup. Next slide, please. And again, as Angela said, Roundup is being front and center in terms of legal challenges in the United States. As she said, the company has placed $10 billion aside in terms of trying to satisfy some of these lawsuits. Next slide, please. So again, this is what your contractor put out on the streets with regards to the spraying process. We did contact the contractor. It took a bit of time for us to get some information from them, but certainly they did provide us with some information. Next slide. So here's what our primary concerns are. Across the street from where we live, this is what typically you see in the roadside ditches. As you can see, the darker areas, this is standing water. The day that the chemical was applied, we had standing water in the ditches. Not only did we have standing water in the ditches, but within 90 minutes of the application of the Roundup, we had rainfall. So anything that the rain could hit in terms of the plants, it was pulling it down and putting it into the roadside ditches. And as Angela said, these roadside ditches are within 30 meters of our drinking water, which is a concern to us and to a lot of the neighbors in the community. Next slide, please. So one of the other things that you can see here is that right adjacent to the stormwater retention pond, you can see where the fence line is. The stormwater retention is just beyond that fence line. You can see the dead foliage here. That's a result of the spray. And that's got to be a concern as well for the safety of Lake Simcoe in terms of the chemicals getting into the lake water. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time. The international community has spoken on a number of different occasions. There are a number of pending lawsuits and legal challenges in different countries. The chemical is obviously a major concern for the health of residents. Next slide, please. Health Canada has also made a statement. Health Canada has indicated that it should not be applied where there's a potential for it to spread in locations of human activity. I will say this, within 100 meters of the areas that have been sprayed, there's approximately 24 kids in the neighborhood. In addition to that, we've got a variety of dog walkers, people walking their pets. And in addition to that, there's a significant amount of natural wildlife that's in the area, snakes, frogs, turtles, etc. Next slide, please. In addition to that, Simcoe was just named a pollinator city. Here's one of our beehives, and it's in close proximity to the area that's being sprayed. And one of the environmental concerns has to be the continuing impact in terms of bees and butterflies and other pollinators in the area. Next slide, please. In July of 2021, Bayer indicated that they were going to take the chemical out of the US consumer market by 2023. Now that's the consumer market. I will say to you, what's being applied is certainly a higher concentration than what the consumer provisions are. So we've got to be concerned if in fact they're starting to realize that they need to take it off the consumer marketplace by 2023 in the US. Next slide, please. And so the question is, are we really winning the battle? As you can see, the dead stocks that are there, those have been killed since 2018, 19, 20. In 2021, you can see the green stuff in the background. That's now on private lands. So you don't have the authority and jurisdiction to spray on private property. So what have you accomplished as a result of this spraying program? Next slide, please. So what we're really asking you, and of course the first bullet point is a moot point now since we did receive information from the town this morning, but we've got a series of questions that we think council in its role as governors of this municipality should be taking seriously and to heart with regards to why are you using this kind of pesticide to manage the challenge around Phragmites. We understand that there are other opportunities, there are other ways of dealing with it. We even wonder whether in fact you're in compliance with provincial and federal regulations at the present time in terms of how you've communicated information, the kind of tracking of that information, etc. So next slide is the final slide. And again, we have a series of questions that we continue to ask. We think you should actually have a fulsome report, and you should have an opportunity to have a public policy debate around how Phragmites need to be contained and controlled within the community. This is something that certainly from our perspective has the potential of a negative consequence as a private well owner. We don't want to see our well water contaminated. We don't think you want to see it contaminated. We don't think you want to see the negative impact that that kind of process could have on this community. So that being said, Your Worship and members of council, I'll wrap it up, realizing that I'm probably now over the 10 minutes, and say thank you. And hopefully, council, you'll take our concerns seriously. We've sent communication and correspondence over the last several years, including the most recent email exchanges that we had. And we're concerned. And we think all of the residents should be concerned about the spraying of Roundup in roadside ditches. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scorbahatch, and thank you, Ms. Gravel. Much appreciate it. Before we go to questions for council, I'm just going to turn it over to Director Bowman for a moment.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to input a couple of comments here and to share some information with council. I certainly hear and understand the public's interest in environmental stewardship, and we're happy to explore this together. For council's clarity and context, Phragmites control is a service we contract to a licensed applicator who completes this work for multiple municipalities. We've invited the contractor and that person will join us at our next council meeting to make a presentation and describe their practice. We've also will have the pleasure of introducing you to Dr. Janice Gilbert. Dr. Gilbert is the founder and executive director of the Invasive Phragmites Control Center and founder and co-chair of the Ontario Phragmites Working Group. And she will join us to talk about the latest in Phragmites management. Dr. Gilbert has contributed to the development of Ontario's invasive Phragmites best management practices and the roadside best management practices. So we'll warmly welcome those individuals to provide answers to all of the questions presented tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Questions and comments from members of council. Deputy Mayor Davidson and then Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Worship. This Phragmites situation, I think, Mayor Dolan, you might remember, I spoke about it when I first got elected as councillor in dealing with our wastewater treatment plant. We had a gentleman working for us at the time. His last name was Sears, if we recall. I can't remember his first name. He worked with the town. And I brought up my concerns on this. And I brought it up again maybe 8 years ago, where a lot of this Phragmites is being generated by unsterilized sand. And speaking with staff today, when contractors are bringing in soil or dirt from other sites to backfill when they're building these subdivisions, a lot of times the sand is not sterilized, the dirt is not sterilized, and it brings this invasive species into the area. My concern with seeing it there at Innisfil Beach Park is that if you know what Phragmites does, it actually will go into a wetland area, ditch, stream, swamp, and literally destroy the entire wetland, literally sucks it up and destroys it. And there's not much you can do. I noticed in the presentation that for 3 years we've been spraying. And I think speaking with Ms. Bowman this afternoon, I understand there was a 3-cycle spray system for it that takes 3 years to actually get rid of the roots of the Phragmites. It's something I think when we see it in our park, we should be very concerned because those wetlands are protected. And we know that we have brook trout in that particular creek. So I think staff will come back with the knowledge at our next council meeting. And I did send a notice of motion to our deputy clerk today. And we'll see where we move the council on this after next week. But I think it really is a concern we need to think about very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have one question. Instead of spraying the Phragmites, why can we not just cut them down to ground level and get rid of them before they go to seed? And I know there is a root issue, and whether we can spray something else on the roots after they've been cut. Once the plant has been cut and there is no seeds able to reseed, I don't understand why we have to spray and we can't cut them down. I have seen them in other and other municipalities where they have the big machines going along the side of the roads, and they just have these big long grass cutters and they just swipe them down and they take them away. So why cannot Innisfil do that? That's just my question.
Thank you, Councillor. Ms. Bowman, did you want to answer that, or is that something we can wait and get an answer from the contractor or the executive director? But Ms. Bowman, definitely, if you have a response.
Of course, and through you to Councillor Payne, Phragmites is a very invasive, highly tolerant plant. It is very difficult to get rid of, but we will certainly hear more about that from Dr. Gilbert. The Phragmites best management practices does set forth, different types of approaches for different types of locations. And I'm sure she'll go into detail about, how to treat at different locations.
Thank you. So if you we'll get those answers for you, Councillor. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. And I want to thank the delegation for their presentation, and also commend staff for bringing the issue forward so we can get some more information on it. Just from the little bit of reading that I did, Phragmites are incredibly invasive and a problem in our environment. And so I just wanted to maybe comment a little bit about some of the points that were made about glyphosate, which is Roundup, that has a lot of concern with a lot of people. We're not wrong to be concerned about things that are going on in our neighborhood. Roundup's incredibly contentious issue, and it's almost like I can relate to the vaccinated, non-vaccinated type of discussion where you get polarized groups on either side on the science behind the products. What I would say is, as a farmer, these tools that we have to control things that Mother Nature throws at us are very valuable, and they should be used according to the labels that Health Canada and a lot of our overseers have put in place to make it safe for our environment. So as long as it's being used according to the label, I think all the some of those issues that of concern have been studied. There was a lot of points about the litigation that's happening in the States, and as a farmer who relies on this tool, it's very concerning, because in the States, the litigation system, it's a judge and jury. So there doesn't necessarily have to be a lot of science behind the arguments. You have people who are sick from a certain reason, and it can be linked to that, and in that system, that's how it works. So just maybe the other side of the story that we might not be aware of. So those are the points that I wanted to bring up with regards to this issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Waters, and then Councillor Sadi.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a very contentious issue, and I have, I've done some research on this, and there are reasons that many people who are concerned about wetlands are truly afraid of this noxious plant, because it can kill a wetland very, very quickly in terms of absorbing its water. They're talking about turtles not being able to move through it, so it has huge habitat repercussions in it. So there, on one side, you have a whole community who are very, very concerned about wetlands because wetlands do form a very, very important function in our environment. And then on the other hand, we have a contentious herbicide which we're using, and in all the research that I read, the number one resolution to this is to spray herbicides on it and then cutting. Cutting on its own doesn't seem to work. So it's one of those situations, in terms of what do you do about this? In this particular application, I understand the homeowner's concern is that they're wells, and the mayor well knows groundwater issues, and so you may want to speak to this piece as well, that they're concerned about the groundwater, and rightly so. So it's not an easy black and white issue here, and I look forward to hearing what some of the professionals have to say, because on one hand, like says, I know the importance of wetlands, and on the other hand, I know what happens when you don't, when you get contaminated wells. We all know what happens there. So it's a very, very contentious issue. So I look forward to hearing more information from the experts, and hopefully we can come up with a resolution that can make us all happy that we're protecting wetlands at the same time we're protecting the health of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Scorbahatch and Ms. Gravel for your presentation and these slides, which is very helpful. And I'm glad that this will come back to council in the next council session for a fulsome discussion. I look forward to getting more information because I think as a resident, we lived off the well here in our home on St. Paul Road, and I would be very concerned about pesticides near a well, and I'm not as knowledgeable as other people, so I can certainly understand the concern and the worry. And I really want to know more about how to, as Councillor Waters said, the repercussions, two different things, this invasive plant, and how do we get rid of it? And what are the alternative methods that are being used? I'd also be interested in that report by staff, what the County of Simcoe is doing, because this isn't just Innisfil, it's throughout Simcoe County. So I'd be interested in that information, other options, burning, whatever, to help us control this, especially in areas near our lake and near residential areas throughout Innisfil, where the residents rely on their well water and have those concerns. So I look forward to that so that we can come up with solutions and hopefully some win-win ways of handling this for the future and reducing the concern and worry by the residents.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I also want to thank Ms. Gravel and Mr. Scorbahatch for bringing this to our attention and coming here tonight with this, and understand that you want some answers, and we're going to hopefully be able to provide those for you at the next meeting, and answer those questions for those questions that you had on your one slide. As Councillor Waters alluded, I since 2007, I've been the chair of the Source Water Protection Committee in this area, which covers about 52 municipalities and 3 First Nations over 4 watersheds in the area. And it was developed in response to the Walkerton tragedy. And it's been quite an experience. I know just enough to be dangerous. So I'm not a hydrogeologist, but I hang around with them all the time on this committee. And we've, over many years, have developed a plan to protect the sources of drinking water. The plan, however, only goes to municipal residential systems and not every private well. But we have learned over the years about the vulnerability scores for the different areas, and then what activities we need to regulate within a certain distance of the well. We do allow herbicides and pesticides by qualified applicants. Usually most of them are farmers and agronomists come up with the areas, and they do work under a risk management plan. One thing that a farmer said to me once that made such sense was, these products are very, very expensive. So we only put down according to the label because, for absorption, because of the fact that they are. So overuse is not an option. But having said that, They are regulated in the plan and within a certain distance of the well. But I'll leave it at that. It's and I'm happy to share a copy of the source protection plan with you, so you might want to have a look at that. And we'll await some more information from the experts and see what we can do. The only other point I would make, and this is one that Deputy Mayor and I are struggling with right now at Simcoe County, is we're going through the same struggle with the gypsy moth or the LDD. So there's areas in the county who are begging for a spray, an aerial spray, to help alleviate the issue. And then of course there's landowners who really want the spray, but then right next door there'll be a landowner that really doesn't want the spray. And how do we do, can we be precise enough only to do our land and not have it affect private property? So that's another one that the county's dealing with right now. Seeing no more hands, I'd ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation. Councillor Arsati and Deputy Mayor Davidson. All those in favor? That is carried. And you're welcome to, if you want to stay, turn off your camera and stay for the rest of the meeting. You're more than welcome to do that. Or you can watch us on live stream, or you could just go enjoy the first evening of fall. Thanks again. Did I say all in favor? Thank you, Angela. Did I say all in favor? I did? Okay, thanks. All right, next is 6.3, which is a delegation by Mr. Pollock regarding item C.5, which is on the agenda this evening. And welcome, Mr. Pollock. And according to our procedural bylaw, you have up to 10 minutes. And please feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Leslie Polak. I started a group called Clean Up Innisfil earlier this summer because I saw a need to clean up our medians and parks in our areas. This past few weekends, we took on the project to clean up the medians along the sidewalks of Innisfil Beach Road, starting at the 25th side road. We thought we would get through all the way up to St. Paul in one weekend, but the weeds were terrible. And we found that the concrete itself is breaking apart on there. We also saw that the weeds are overgrown and the bushes are overgrown, and they are actually impeding the sight lines of the drivers trying to get onto Innisfil Beach Road. And it makes it very difficult. So last weekend we had cut some down, cleaned them up. We had 7 bags of yard waste, and we only did 3 of the gardens. These gardens used to be taken care of, and from my understanding, we've gone to a service level budget, and these things were cut. I'm not sure if our council knew that these were the items that were going to be cut, but during a period of the pandemic, it's important that we keep our spaces beautiful because people can't get around. And now when you're driving around, it looks terrible. It looks disgusting. And I'm not the only one to say it. Other people are saying it's disgusting. We need to do something, and we don't want to wait anymore to have something done to make these look better. Those medians cost just under $30 million to put in. They were budgeted for 30, it came in at $27 million. And then we had to spend another just under $1 million to remove some of the medians in front of Home Hardware. I don't think it was a good idea that the medians be put in near the corners of the roads because they block. And we have the bicycle paths, which even makes it harder for drivers to see the bicyclist coming. I really want us to think about this better. And I don't think spending $40,000 on a consultant to see what's going to happen is a move we should make. We need to get our staff to start cleaning these things up so they can be used properly and put plantings there for next year so things can be beautified again. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Pollock. Very much appreciated you being here tonight. And thank you for your community involvement. I just want to clarify one thing, and I'll ask staff to help me or if I get this wrong, but my understanding is the $30 million was the entire project of the entire Main Street. So that included sidewalks, pipe, the stormwater pipe, curb and bringing it to a proper urban standard as opposed to it was open ditches before, street lighting, benches, like not just the $30 was not just the medians. But Ms. Bowman, can you correct me if I'm wrong? I just want to make sure that we clarify that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Bobby Joe in the engineering department and I reviewed this earlier today, and you are correct. That is the 30 million is the fulsome cost of all of the works that were undertaken to narrow that into the medians, planters, some of the accessories, benches, garbage cans, and other plantings and whatnot. That's closer to $1.5 million as part of the larger project.
Thank you. Because if I remember correctly, when that project was going on, there is a culvert under that road that you could drive a car through. It's and all that had to be dug out first, but Councillor Van Berkel is nodding, so I must be on the right track. But
No, you are, Your Worship. Yep, absolutely. The widening of the road, everything was included. The environmental assessment, the engineering, all came to $30 million.
Which was a huge amount of money back in the day. I remember we all had to. We were all quite sticker shocked when we heard that price. Okay, so now I'm going to go to questions and comments. Councillor Waters and Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Worship. I will say, and I'll say it out loud, is that, and I've heard complaints about the islands in years past in terms of the few misplaced ones were in there. But I've been a resident almost 33, 34 years now, and I can remember driving down Innisfil Beach Road when we did have the ditches, and it was not a sight to be seen. It wasn't a tourist attraction, that's for sure. Innisfil Beach Road looks 10,000 times better than it ever did in the past. And I think it's all those plantings, the proper construction, the benches and all that kind of stuff that's gone in there. So Innisfil Beach Road looks a lot better, and it's basically it's the foundation for when we start building up the downtown. That's what it's going to look like. The medians, the trees, the plants allow to bring that road in to make it look a lot more family oriented. It's much more private. It's much better than Bayfield and Mapleview, all which are 4-lane highways down the middle of commercial zone. So first of all, I want to stand up and say, I think Innisfil Beach Road looks great. Has it been maintained over the past few years? I would agree with Mr. Pollock. No, it hasn't. It's been allowed to slide downhill. One of my first comments I made to operations when I first got here was how everything with all the concrete was falling apart, and what were we going to do about it? And here we are 3 years later. And I know we did cut budgets back to help taxpayers last year and next year in terms of COVID. But I think these are the few things that residents realize, that we pay taxes for something, and this is something maybe we shouldn't have cut out of the budgets. And I agree that we need to get back to planting these up. The ones in Barrie look absolutely gorgeous. This can be an absolutely this can be an attraction where people are coming into our town. I think it can look a lot better than it actually does. So I think we just need to put a bigger effort into it. And I appreciate Mr. Pollock's effort in terms of trying to clean those all up because they did badly need it. And so I look forward to next year. I look forward to a better year of maintenance of that, because it really reflects upon council, it reflects upon the town. That's the first thing you see when you come to Innisfil. So first of all, I want to say I like the plants, I like the medians, and it makes it feel much more homier as you're walking down that street. But they do need to be cleaned up, and I do agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. I concur with Councillor Waters. The ones in Barrie and around smaller municipalities where I've been over the last couple of months look absolutely fantastic. I had a conversation this afternoon with staff to see what we can move forward on. I think they've got some solutions that can appease the residents, but we used to have a communities in Bloom in Innisfil, I think when Brian Jackson was mayor, and the town rocked. Our flower gardens were amazing, our streets were amazing. I think we kind of missed the boat on that one when that disappeared. We have an arboretum that I think the town owns now that we bought that from our horticultural society. That was amazing when it was up and swinging. I think we need to look all of that as a long-term vision. What are we going to do? Something like Barrie, where they have their own greenhouse down the road. I did receive a letter from a gentleman. It's sitting on my desk, and he had several pictures of the town, how messy it is, and how upset he was that our town hall looked like it'd gone through a battle or something. So I know that this past year we did do a 0% increase, which I was not in support of. But this 3 years ago, when I was on the Innisfil Beach Road, the curves were crumbling then, and it was not being cleaned up and looked after. So hopefully after tonight, we'll get this situation rectified, and maybe we won't have to book $40,000 for a consultant, which would be amazing. So let's see what staff brings forward, and I think we can do a better job. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Van Berkel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with a lot that was just said by both the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Waters. But I do want to point out that I saw somewhere that said there was no public consultation on those mediums, which is not true, because at the time we had and Your Worship, you will concur in this, we had I think it was the Alcona Business Association that was heavily involved, and they were all the business owners in Alcona. And you know, there were 3 or 4 different drawings made by our engineers and architects at the time of what should happen on Innisfil Beach Road. And I think, you know, with their consultation, that's where these mediums came from and what they wanted to see in the benches and the lights and whatever. So there was a lot of consultation by the public, especially the business owners in Alcona at the time. What they look like now, maybe, you know, hindsight is always 20/20. Maybe we should have, you know, cut somewhere else in the budget, but you know, it's not that we can't fix this. I think we can fix it. There's going to be a discussion tonight, I hope, on how we can fix it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sadi.
Thank you. Thank you to Mr. Pollock for your presentation, and to your group for the initiative of what you call, I think you call it clean communities or beautifying. I can't remember the phrase, but you know, it's always wonderful when residents get inspired and volunteer to help make our community beautiful, and it makes everyone feel good. I was one of many of the volunteers that was involved in Communities in Bloom under Brian Jackson, and we raised money as a group of volunteers to purchase plants. We bought dirt. We had the town helped us put the dirt out. We volunteers planted the plantings. We as volunteers watered the plantings, and then we gave it to the town to take over. But then the town was under construction and a lot was happening. So things, you know, and there wasn't an agricultural department in our town. So I think as we grow, we learn and we have things that we can improve upon. As Councillor Van Berkel has said, it will be a topic that we are pulling and we will be discussing tonight. And we can always make, you know, improvements, and everybody wants a town that we can all be proud of. And I think it's just about stepping back, looking at it, and it's like anything in hindsight, what we can do and recommendations for changes. Also, Councillor Van Berkel talked about public consultation. The town has always held public open houses, and I attended one of those public open houses that was held at the town hall when all those islands and medians were designed and the public had an opportunity to go look at it and weigh in on it. I was very excited because it does provide a picturesque view. And listen, sometimes like my house, when something starts to get aged, it doesn't look as nice and we have to spruce it up. So maybe it's just time to do some of that. And staff have been working on that. We look forward to their input later this evening.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments?
Can I say one last comment?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I read staff report DSR 138-21. I was surprised to learn that many of these islands have irrigation systems and they haven't been working for quite a while. We didn't know about that. Because we've seen when the town was taking care of it, they were driving around with water trucks and watering these. And we've also seen that the lamp posts, the paint is peeling off of them on there. So it looks like the base wasn't prepared properly because this is supposed to be a long lasting paint. So there's some maintenance there to be done. And preventative maintenance costs a lot less than doing major repairs afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Agreed. Councillor Orsatti.
Mr. Pollock just hit on a topic that, you know, is near and dear to me, and he's, you know, quite out there in social media. Maybe you can help us, Mr. Pollock, because those blue lampposts that are in that beautiful blue color, which is my understanding is a custom color that's used in the benches and the light posts. And the thing that always tears me up is when residents take garage sale signs and they duct tape them to those lampposts. Imagine if someone duct taped them to cars, how it takes the paint off. So sometimes we're our worst enemies, and we don't realize the impact of some of those. But so maybe you can help us share that message in the community to use the wooden posts, and we can all help preserve some of you know, what we really enjoy.
I definitely will try to help out as much as I can. One of my posts from Saturday has reached over 7,000 people, so it's catching on.
Wonderful. Thank you. So yeah, I want to thank you and all of the residents who not only through Pitch-In Day, but also just go out and, you know, pull weeds and do things. It's wonderful to have such community support. The Cookstown Chamber was out this weekend putting mums and fall grasses in the planters around town and pulling weeds. So it's great to have that community support. And I would agree with Councillor Van Berkel. Hindsight is 2020. In March of 2020, when we went into our first declared our emergency, you know, we didn't know what was ahead of us. We didn't know that the province was going to provide so much funding for us. We were worried about running a deficit. We knew we had to take a bunch of our staff and redeploy them to Innisfil Beach Park. We were very fortunate to have staff that would just, you know, switch from what they were supposed to be doing to doing something totally different. And we did neglect our not only town hall and the medians, but all of the parks. I got numerous calls about the land being or the grass not being cut enough and so on. And so, yeah, hindsight being 2020, if I had a do-over, I probably would have voted differently, but it is what it is. And the good thing is it is repairable. And I think that we can learn from this and move forward. And I do believe that a lot of, it was so funny, somebody brought up former Mayor Jackson, and the deputy mayor did, and he phoned me this week to say the same thing Mr. Pollock did. You know, I don't like the look of the medians. I don't like the paint chipping. So he's not a resident of Innisfil anymore, but his daughter is. So he made sure he gave me a call. So heard, lesson learned. Thank you, Mr. Pollock, for your delegation. Much appreciated. Now, could I have a mover and a seconder for the delegation? Moved by Deputy Mayor Davidson, seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. And the next item is our Innisfil Library Board. And welcome to Chair Smith and Ms. Goodfellow. Thank you for being here this evening. Very excited to have you here and looking forward to your presentation whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor Davidson and Council. I am Anne Smith. I'm the Library Board Chair, and I'm joined by Vice Chair Wendy Van Straten and Board Member Monica Goodfellow. We're here tonight to update Council on a critical step the Library Board has undertaken to recognise the First Peoples on whose traditional territories we live, work and play. Next slide, please. The recent revelation of missing children and unmarked graves has brought a tragic history to our collective doors, and the board recognises that the library plays a key role in education and public discourse. This update is particularly timely as Canada will, for the first time, recognise the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th in order to honour the survivors of residential schools. Next slide, please. As part of the library's support of the diversity and inclusion work undertaken by the town of Innisfil, the board struck a committee in January 2021 with the goal to develop a library land acknowledgement statement. As part of this process, the committee engaged in considerable education through self-directed readings, research, and we participated in numerous cultural competency workshops. The library's Land Acknowledgement Committee also consulted with Jeff Moneg, a former chief of the Beausoleil First Nation. He is currently the co-manager at Springwater Provincial Park and is an elder and knowledge keeper for the Indigenous community. His assistance was critical to ensure the accuracy of the statement and that the appropriate respect and honour is afforded to Indigenous peoples through the acknowledgement. Next slide, please. Land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognises the First Nations on whose traditional territories we work and live. It also demonstrates respect for Indigenous peoples, both in the past and the present, and the contributions they have made to our communities and nation. They also mark a small, important step in the process of reconciliation and help build a positive relationship with Indigenous peoples. Using and participating in a land acknowledgement offers recognition of the presence and resilience of Indigenous peoples. It is a reminder that we are accountable to these relationships. Next slide, please.
Through the use of a land acknowledgement statement, library staff, board members, and partners will reflect on the relationship to the land in which we work and acknowledge our presence on the land as visitors and as part of our colonial history. Raise awareness of Indigenous presence and the land rights in everyday life for ourselves and meeting participants. Recognize the history of colonialism and the resulting negative effect on Indigenous communities. Gain a better understanding of the treaty relationship. Understand the importance of honoring and giving respect to First Peoples. Create better relationships and connections with various Indigenous communities. Support the actions of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Next slide, please. After several months of research and professional development, including consultation with members of the Indigenous community, the following statement was adopted at the Library Board's June 21st, 2021 meeting. Innisfil ID 11 Library acknowledges that the town of Innisfil is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. We also acknowledge that this land is the traditional territories of the First Peoples of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe people of Beausoleil First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for their generosity of stewardship, for their generations of stewardship. And as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The library acknowledges with the forest sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward Métis and Inuit peoples. Next slide, please. The land acknowledgement will take place at the commencement of significant meetings, public events, presentations, and other gatherings used for land acknowledgement delivery in a variety of formats and circumstances. Staff will also create opportunities to further highlight the history of Indigenous peoples. Next slide, please. For example, this year on September 29th, The library is hosting guest speaker, Dr. Cynthia Wesley Eskimo. Cynthia will speak to the differences between decolonizing and indigenizing, and why indigenizing has become her main approach to reconciliation in Canada. On September 30th, the library is bringing an outdoor intergenerational traditional story time to Innisfil Beach Park. Indigenous elder and community facilitator Chris Merkel will share traditional stories and sing songs as part of a meaningful conversation toward truth and reconciliation. The committee recognizes that adoption of a land acknowledgement statement is merely one of many steps toward reconciliation and relationship building. It will evolve as we learn and grow in our understanding of history and current events. Next slide, please.
Okay. Adoption of a land acknowledgement statement. I'm sorry, can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay. Adoption of a land acknowledgement statement allows us the opportunity to appreciate the unique role and relationship that each of us has with the land, and provides a gentle reminder of the broader perspectives that expand our knowledge and our understanding to encompass the long-standing rich history of the land and our privileged role in residing here. To recognize the land is an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those whose territory on which we all reside, a way of honoring Indigenous peoples who have existed on the land from time immemorial. And it is a way to understand our place within that history. We recognize that colonialism is a current, ongoing process, and we need to be mindful of our present participation. Next slide, please. As part of the board's commitment to reconciliation, the library board and staff will continue to learn about the history of Indigenous peoples and develop a stronger relationship with First Nations partners, and is fully committed to this work. These steps would not be possible without Council's continued support of the library board. As a first step in this commitment, Indigenous cultural awareness will be incorporated into onboarding and regular professional development for board and library staff. Library staff will continue to seek opportunities to build awareness and to strengthen our relationship with First Nations. This step supports the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action number 57, Professional Development and Training for Public Servants, which states, we call upon federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments to provide education to public servants on the history of Aboriginal peoples, including the history and legacy of residential schools, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, treaties and Aboriginal rights, Indigenous law, and Aboriginal Crown relations. This will require skills-based training in intercultural competency, conflict resolution, human rights, and anti-racism. In addition, library staff will be working with the town's diversity and inclusion team to share this work with our One Town, One Team partners. I would like to acknowledge that those attending this meeting are not responsible for the difficult history of Indigenous peoples, but we are responsible for doing better moving forward. Innisfil Idea Lab and Library is committed to this work, and our adoption of the Land Acknowledgement Statement is the first step in this journey. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Chair Smith, Vice Chair Van Straten, and Ms. Goodfellow. Really appreciate you being here. Questions or comments for members of the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library? Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to the library board, to our chair, Ann Smith, and members of the board for working so hard on that. It was a lot of meetings, a lot of work, a lot of educational training, as Ann has mentioned. And there was a lot of passion and caring and sort of satisfaction in reaching that mutually agreed land acknowledgement statement. And I know that that is also included on the town agenda later. Just one thing that when this comes on later as well, in one of the last sessions that the board had with Miss Kelly Brownbill from the Barrie Area Native Center, as she was facilitating with us, one of the recommendations is I asked about doing a land acknowledgement at a council meeting, and how do we, just rather than stating this, how do we get people to understand why we're doing it? And one suggestion was to have on our websites that explains this is why we're doing it, this is the importance, so that when we read that every time, it's just not reading a statement, but hopefully it reaches home as to the importance of that with our community members. And again, thank you very much to all the board members.
Thank you for that, Councillor Sadi. And I'd also like to thank staff. It was a great report to read, and quite a, like, I learned a lot by reading the report that's in our agenda for this evening, and appreciate that you've done all the heavy lifting for us, and that we can just copy and paste all of your hard work. So thank you so much for that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then I'd ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation. Councillor Waters and Councillor Orsatti, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you so much, and we're going to get to that item very shortly because it's item C1 on tonight's agenda. So that's all our delegations for this evening. So next is item number 7. This is the opportunity and the agenda. First, I should let you know that council meetings are just the tip of the iceberg. All members of council have so much other work to do behind the scenes on different committees and other boards that they've been appointed to on behalf of Innisfil Council. So this is our opportunity to just get everybody up to speed, including each other, on work that we're doing behind the scenes. So I'll go first to the Deputy Mayor. Any updates from County Council, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. I think everybody's aware that at County Council, we're looking at our waste situation and the containers that we're dealing with, particularly at Sandy Cove. So we'll keep moving forward, and hopefully we make the right decision in that direction. I know that everyone's working hard to find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Anyone else before I go to the Emergency Operations Center? Councillor Fowler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to let everybody know that Pitching Day this year, even though it was delayed by pretty much a year and a half, went off very, very well. We had almost 80 kits picked up by residents who volunteered their time and effort and energy. And I just want to say that when I was driving around town, I was checking in with people. I did a little bit of a cleanup myself first thing, and then everyone I stopped to was in good spirits. And then everyone in this town rises so early. By 11 o'clock, I saw more bags that were filled by the side of the road than people. It was incredible. So we have a very industrious town here, and it's something that I am proud to take part of every year, and just keep up the amazing work. You guys are incredible. I'd like to thank operations for going out all summer long. Anytime someone's cleaned up, they've stepped up and picked up a bag when someone left it by the side of the road, put an email in, put a call in. So it's just been a very, very eventful summer for everybody who's done this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have any updates from boards, commissions? Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you. This is just in regards to the Traffic Safety Committee, and at the last Thursday's School and Traffic Safety Committee meeting, I had mentioned to the committee that I was going to provide a notice of motion regarding the 7th line and St. John's intersection to council meeting that should have just been on the agenda tonight. We would not have spoken on it. And a notice of motion to those in the public is that it provides a notice to council and to the public that a specific subject is to be considered at council at the following meeting. So that means we wouldn't have been able to speak on this item of the traffic safety and this intersection until October 13th. And, you know, there's always a proper way to handle concerns. And at the minutes of that meeting, that'll also be placed on the 13th for consideration. I decided that both procedurally and to not undermine the committee in my role as vice chair of that committee, that I will pull the committee minutes for council, along with Council Van Berkel assisting me on that, to consider a fulsome discussion with staff and council and the public on updates and options for considerations on that item. And therefore, I encourage members of the public who are interested in this item on the 7th line in St. John to watch on October the 13th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll go to the Emergency Operations Center for an update. Would that be Ms. Ray? It is. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Council, the Simcoe-Muskoka District Health Unit has advised that there has been a plateau in cases locally and across the province. In the last week, there has been an increase in cases that have been community acquired, and 100% of local cases are currently the Delta variant. There has also been an increase in cases in young adults across Simcoe County, and youth and young adult populations continue to lag behind in the uptake of the COVID-19 vaccine. Immunization clinics will restart September 27th, including school immunization programs, vaccine days at each health unit office, a clinic at 29 Sperling until the end of September, and the Go Vax bus. Since the province announced the vaccine certificate earlier this month, there has been a 33% increase in the uptake of the first dose of the vaccine. Proof of vaccination is required into non-essential buildings and settings as of today. As a result, we have updated our return to play protocols for applicable town facilities and programs, and all of those details can be found at innisfil.ca/COVID-19. Many businesses are also required to check patrons' proof of vaccination, and as a reminder, if assistance is needed, bylaw should be engaged first, and police can be engaged where people become violent. Finally, SMDHU is asking any organizers of special events to continue planning their fall and winter events in accordance with their guidelines, but the SMDHU does not recommend planning indoor events for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Ms. Ray. For that, any questions or comments from anyone? Councillor Van Berkel.
Just have a question. Somebody called me today and asked, now that we need a certificate of proof for vaccination, do the, like bartenders, waitresses, you know, waiters, do they have to have like double vaccination certificate, or can they work without it?
Ms. Ray, do you know the answer to that? Or should
I don't have the details on the top of my head.
Okay, no problem. We can double check with the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit. I did have a meeting there last week, but we didn't discuss that. But my understanding, and perhaps the deputy mayor in his other job could help, I think it's up to the business to decide what his or her employees wish to require.
Your Worship.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I cannot ask my employees to get it or not get it. It is left up to them. And all I can say is that my team's been very good, but it is not mandated that they be vaccinated. And that is part of my problem with this passport policy. I'm not a big supporter of it at all, in the fact that there seem to be mixed messages. And I think today I was watching the Premier, and they're going to operate under an education system first, and hopefully by October 23rd, they'll have the passport available information on your phones. That means a month of businesses picking up the cost and the hassles. And then he also stated that if the percentages of vaccinated people increase, they would cancel this process very quickly. So we're kind of in a conundrum right now of really what is to be done. I know a lot of restaurants are taking extra measures. I'm still doing contact tracing. I'm still following the old measures as much as I can, and my staff have been fantastic so far. So we'll just go along in that direction, but I cannot mandate they get it. I cannot ask them if they've got it. So that's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I would just remind the public that, because I've had quite a few calls too, people thinking that this is something we could opt out of, and it is not. This is provincial requirement, and we are required to follow the rules, as are all other municipalities. Any other questions? Ms. Ray.
Your Worship, if I could just add, on our website at innisfil.ca/COVID-19, we do have proof of vaccination guidance for business and organizations. So there is a link to that resource for anyone who needs it.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Jen. Okay, we'll go to our consent list then, which is item 8. So for those of you who may be watching, there's several items on here. We'll go through. Everyone will have the opportunity to pull an item, to discuss it, ask a question. If the item isn't pulled, that means that council is satisfied with the staff recommendation, and at the end of the meeting, we will ratify all of those recommendations. So we'll start with A1, which is the special council meeting minutes of September the 2nd. A2, the council meeting minutes of September the 8th. The council minutes of September the 8th. The Innisfil Heritage Advisory Committee report from September the 2nd. Then we have the C1, the land acknowledgement statement. So nobody's pulling that, so that means that we will be adopting as council that land acknowledgement statement as the part of the One Town One Team. So thanks again to the library. C2, the development charges interest policy. Councillor Orsatti? You wanted to pull that?
No, I don't need to pull it, Your Worship. I just wanted to say that I'm happy to see that the 0% interest for the not-for-profit affordable housing, and also that staff will work with aligning that in with the county later and reporting back.
Thank you. C3, 640 Mapleview Drive, proposed zoning bylaw amendment. C4, 34 King Street South, Heritage Preservation Agreement. Councillor Nichol.
Thank you, Worship. I don't need to pull it. I just want to say it's great to see this agreement protecting this property and the restoration that's going to begin. So it's amazing that after so much time, it's finally being protected and taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. You took the words out of my mouth. Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you. Yes, not to pull it, but just to say that was a very informative report, a lot of pages, but the more I read, I was like, I learned so much. So it was a great report, and happy to see that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I was remiss if I'd have had more days this week. I would have. There's a number of people that I know would have loved to see this come forward. So I'll be sure I share it with those folks. One of them was a woman now who lives in Muskoka, but was Frances Bilodeau, who lived in that property with her family, and there's many people who will be so happy to see this happen. Okay, sorry. Item C5. Innisfil Beach Road medians. Nobody wants to pull that. No. Councillor Orsatti.
Yes, pull that. Thank you.
Sure. All right. And item D1, the County of Simcoe's Municipal Comprehensive Review update. Councillor Ices.
Yeah, I'd like to refer that to committee too, please.
Thank you. And then next is E, bylaws, is E1, the bylaw to provide for the appointment of Brent Thomas as fire chief for the town of Innisfil and to rescind the appointment of Jim Kay as interim fire chief. Did anyone want to pull that? Well, if nobody's going to pull it, I just wanted to take a few moments to acknowledge it and embarrass newly elected or newly appointed Chief Thomas to Innisfil. Welcome, Chief Thomas. I think you might be on the call here tonight. But I would just like to say on behalf of council, both Bradford West Gwillimbury and Innisfil, I want to personally welcome you, Chief, to Innisfil. We're so happy to have you here. You're joining us at a really exciting time with our new CAO, Oliver Jershaw, joining us at the end of October. And as we evaluate the shared services feasibility study with Bradford West Gwillimbury. We look forward to benefiting from your vast experience in emergency services, and I look forward to hearing about your ideas for the future and how we can continue to improve our already very great fire service here in Innisfil. I'm also happy that both Innisfil and BWG will benefit from the knowledge that you have already have from working within Simcoe County. Although I may not be very popular with Mayor Clark from the city of Orillia after this appointment, I know that they do wish you well in your new role. So thank you so much, Chief Thomas, if you'd like to say a few words.
Yes, Your Worship, Mayor Dolan and Deputy Mayor Davidson and members of council and those in the meeting, thank you for the welcome. I'm very much looking forward to serving along with you in the community there and also in Bradford West Gwillimbury. It's certainly a pleasure. We operate as a family, so you're not just getting me, you're getting my wife and my adult children too. We like to work together. We've spent quite a bit of time recently enjoying your community, driving through it to get used to it and kind of get an idea of just how beautiful it is there. And very exciting times. I've been shared quite a few little tidbits on what's happening, and it is an exciting time for Innisfil. I look forward to working with each of you, and I'm very much the kind of person where I'll work alongside of you and let's do it together. I really appreciate the one town, one team attitude and way that you choose to do business, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of work, and yes, Mayor Clark did assure me that he might not speak to you for a day or two, but he is happy for you.
Thank you. I will look forward to the next county council meeting when he can scowl at me over the Zoom call. Thank you, Chief Thomas, and welcome to you and welcome to your family. We're happy to have all of you. But I also would like to extend my sincere thanks to Chief Jim Kay, who stepped in as our joint chief over the last 10 months. We have benefited from the leadership and stability you brought to the role, and we are grateful to you. And I wish you, as you re-enter retirement, I believe for the third time, I wish you so well. I'm not sure whether Chief Kay was able to be with us tonight. But I also have one other piece of news, and tonight we're also saying goodbye to our Deputy Fire Chief, Tim McCallum, who will be leaving us for retirement in early October. Tim has been with us for over 25 years, starting as a volunteer firefighter in 1995. Tim and I started in Innisfil at the same time. Until he moved into a full-time firefighter role in 2002 and then stepping in as deputy in 2017. Tim has been an integral part of our COVID-19 task force over the past 2 years and held the very important role of community emergency management coordinator for our municipality. I never realized how important a CEMC was until we had a global pandemic. and he's provided us solid support at the Emergency Operations Center for these past 18 months. He was also instrumental in the peer support team within fire services, and I know I speak on behalf of our fire services team, council, and staff when I thank you for your service. Although we are sad to see you leave, we're happy for you as you enter this next chapter of your life, and we wish you all the best in your future. And again, I can't scroll through all the screen to see if Deputy Chief McCallum is with us, but I know we will get these words to him if he's not able to. So having said that, I'll move on then to F, which is correspondence for action. There's none of those this evening. And then go to G, which is correspondence for information. There are many pieces on there this evening, and wondered if there was any of those that wish to be pulled. Councillor Nicol.
Your Worship, can we pull G5, please?
Thank you. And that is the end of our consent list. So now we will have a consent list recommendation that the items that we're going to pull, moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That is carried. And next we will resolve into committee of the whole. And that's moved by Councillor Fowler and seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. So our first item would be C1. I'm sorry, C5, my apologies. And that was pulled by Councillor Arsati.
Thank you, Your Worship. My seconder for this is Councillor Alex Waters. But I also want to share that not only Councillor Waters, but Councillor Van Berkel and I have, as well, have been discussing these mediums for quite some time. And I think, you know, even from the delegation by Mr. Pollock tonight, and we've heard in the public about our residents being unhappy with the way that they look. And certainly the council agenda and the report that was in the agenda, you know, it also brings raises questions when council I'll speak for myself. When I get the agenda, I look over, I read every single page, and then with the items that I have concerns or questions on, I send questions to the staff that wrote that report. Can you clarify this? Why is this? Is there another option? And I may even do other research. What about this? And I'm sure that, you know, I know that many other councillors do the same thing or have different methods. So sometimes to the public, it may seem that we're not concerned, or maybe we're not even speaking about an item. But as we heard, and many of the members of council were speaking earlier with Mr. Pollock's presentation, the medians affect all of us. Even, you know, Councillor Waters and I share the wards that these are on Innisfil Beach Road. So we sometimes hear the most, but it also expands to others that for community pride. And you know, I think there's always opportunities, as we said, to improve upon things and to have staff take a second look at their report. I spoke to Ms. Bowman, the Director of Operations, in regards to this, and there's some, I think there's information that's important for our public to understand, that sometimes it's not just the plant material, but there's a lot more to it. Some of what was discussed in the bricks that were used that are not standing up, they start to crumble, or maybe an underground, a self-watering system that isn't working. So it's more than just the plant material, but it becomes broader. And like something where you start to fix something in your house, you think it's an easy fix, and then it becomes thousands of dollars. And municipally, that's usually multiplied. I know the one thing that I was getting calls on, and I'm sure that others were as well, when we say consultants, and in the report, it was a request for $40,000 for consultant. But sometimes we need to use a different phrasing. And when I was speaking with Ms. Bowman, the consultant was really at the time a landscape architect to get their input. But I want to give Ms. Bowman an opportunity to speak tonight to give some background information and some ideas that, you know, Councillor Van Berkel, Councillor Waters, and I have that we would like to share with the rest of the group, and a recommendation.
Thank you. I just want clarification though, Councillor Arsati. My understanding was the recommendation that you wanted to move and Councillor Waters wanted to second was not the original recommendation, but a revised recommendation.
So, and did you want me to give that revised recommendation now, or did you?
Yeah, I didn't think you would want your name and Councillor Waters' name on the original, but I don't want to lead you if that's where you want to go. That's
no. So I wanted to pull it to discuss it and request a revised recommendation to that report.
So I think then your revised recommendation is on the screen now.
Oh, okay, hang on, sorry. Let me move my slide over. Yes.
Okay, and then I'll pass it off to Councillor Bowman, Director Bowman.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Arsati and members of council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide an update. I can appreciate that this is a very hot topic of interest to council and community alike. The cat's out of the bag already with the recommendation that's in front of you. We have been working different channels to find resources, and the good news is we've found a more direct route to the finish line, and we will be able to do that without the support of a consultant, as Councillor Arsati said, was to be a raw materials expert or landscape architect that could have given some direction. We found some resources to support us and believe that we can now accomplish this using our existing operational budget by breaking this into some smaller, more manageable projects that we can start to complete right away. So this is a repair effort. The medians, the physical structure has a variety of repair jobs required. Some are a bit more extensive than others, but we believe we have a much clearer path forward now and can get to work on that right away. Now, the other piece I'd like to highlight is, well, that's the physical planters that we're talking about and it's subject of this report. Of course, our community is also interested in the plantings and the treatment in those planters. So I have some other good news to share with council and the public tonight. We're excited to have applied for some grant funding from the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association to bring in 2 students for some green jobs that will be horticulture focused beginning this fall and through the winter. Their primary efforts will be around both those medians as we align them with our regular staff so that can be done safely, as well as on town campus and other horticultural spaces. The intent is to bring them back up to a good state of repair. We hear, and I agree with you, they're not optimal and they don't look their best. So we are moving our resources around as we switch from our outdoor park season to our indoor arena season, and we will move to get those resources in place, cleaning up medians, and as well as those other horticultural spaces. So with that said, there is certainly a revised recommendation here that your staff are ready and willing to move on. And I'm happy to further clarify if there are any other questions about this.
Thank you. Other questions, comments on the revised recommendation? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to be assured that with the grant money that we do have, we're going to get the 2 students to bring this back up to, standards the community can accept. I just want to be reassured that there is money in the budget for future years, so we don't run back into this problem again down the road. This is something that can deteriorate very, very quickly. Weeds are phenomenal creatures. They can take over an area very quickly. And so I'd like to be reassured that down the road that we have a proper budget to maintain these so that we're not revisiting this in the next council. Thank you.
Director Bowman.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Councillor Waters. I agree with you, Councillor Waters. I would like to help Council be clear on the service level that you're expecting for horticulture. So as we come out of, hopefully, COVID for the spring of 2022, we will be looking at how any of our existing resources will be able to be deployed back to practices of the past. However, it could be the case that our practices of the past are not indeed what you'd like to return to. And we're certainly ready to engage in a conversation about how you want to invest in beautification. If that needs to be more than we're able to do, we're certainly open to that conversation with you.
Thank you. And Director Bowman, so we've already passed the 2022 budget at a 1% increase, but we always have that window of opportunity once we kind of understand if we're in a deficit or surplus position to maybe make some tweaks at that point. So is that something, am I kind of going in the right direction? I see Mr. Melanishan has his screen on. Mr. Melanishan?
Through your worship, yes, there is the opportunity as we try and reaffirm this year 2 budget. We're definitely looking at all our options as we move forward and we get through Q4 and the year end, and understanding have a really good handle on the surplus or deficit position we are in. We do have the fallback position of our tax rate stabilization reserve, which has been created through the due diligence over the past many years by various councils. So there are many options for us, and we will bring that to council probably as one recommendation, probably through the year 2 reaffirmation of the budget, and then possibly in the beginning of next year once we have a really good handle on our actual financial position for the end of the year. So we will bring that to council for sure.
Thank you. Ms. Bowman?
And if I could add to that as well, Your Worship, certainly we are always, as we just did with this grant for the student support, we're always keeping our eyes out for grants that could be aligned to this type of activity.
Thank you for that. Councillor Orsatti?
Thank you. And just building upon Councillor Waters' comments, so just clarification for our public, with this being able to do this out of your operation budget and with that grant money with the horticultural students. So just clarifying, there'll be enough to repair. We're not talking replacement of the islands, but repair it to hold it together and keep it looking nice. And does this also cover that next year, because it's a little late for any planting now, that next year these will be able to be planted with something that would be attractive, and also the maintenance of that for next year? Thank you.
Ms. Bowman?
Thank you, and through your worship to Councillor Orsatti. Yes, so from what we know right now, our operational budget, we will be able to manage this. We'll do some rejigging and prioritizing, and I believe that this can be accomplished. Little secret, my parks manager may have been perusing the local greenhouses as recently as yesterday and today, looking to find if there were opportunities to make some purchases of things that could go in those medians this fall that would be blooming in the summer and spring of next year. So with any luck, she was successful, but we are taking steps this fall to both to improve those horticultural spaces. With any luck, we'll get them a little better even than a kind of a baseline.
Thank you, Director Bowman. And then I guess this is going to be a conversation for this council or the next council, is when we go through strategic direction, just how important is this? Councillor Waters and I were on a walk in downtown Barrie in the summer, and it was absolutely beautiful, but they have like 45 staff working on that. So we have to set a level of service that the community can live with, that we can afford. Well, we can afford anything. We can do anything if people are willing to pay for it, but we have to find that right balance. I totally agree that you know, the needle has gone way too far to neglect, but we have to decide where we want that needle and how much effort and time and resources we want to put into horticulture. If that's something that's important to our residents, then certainly we can step up our game, and we could look like Niagara on the Lake if that's what the residents want. But we just have to find that right balance. So we have a mover and a seconder for a revised recommendation, and I'm not seeing any other hands. Thank you, Councillor Orsatti, for bringing forward that revised recommendation. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. Next was item D1, and that was Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. I'm wondering if someone can help me out with a seconder to put on the floor. Councillor Fowler, thank you. Yes, so I thought I would just pull this item. It's just to bring it to the attention of our residents. This process that's going on at the county level will lead to us having to make some important decisions in the future about what our town looks like, where people will live, and what that'll look like. So that the report talks about the process. I was really happy to see the agricultural mapping that's going on. That's going to help with these decisions. And I also wanted to highlight at the end of the report that where staff is going to have some public consultation on October 20th to hear from residents. And I see Mr. Deloyd, you can probably add to what I've said so far, and I'll turn it over to you.
Mr. Deloyd, you're on mute still.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to mention to council and the community that on August 11th, we had a growth management report, and that set up a broad framework for looking at how all of the pieces come together. This report takes it down a notch and gets a little more detailed as to what's about to happen. But there's some very big studies and actions happening behind the scenes, and they're going to roll out quickly, as Councillor Ices had indicated. And we invite you to stay very close on top of that. And so our planning programs will dovetail nicely with the provincial and the county programs. And in a very near future, we'll be receiving growth numbers, detailed growth numbers for what is expected of the town of Innisfil to accept. And that's a very big thing. And we will be then having to assign where that growth goes. And that's a really important piece. But growth is a very important aspect of community well-being and finance and environment, all those things. So we need to make sure that we have a transparent process involving the community, the developers and landowners, and our development liaison group, and our sister agencies, especially in power and in services. So we're going to be working with everybody, but it's going to move very quickly. And if you look at the roadmap in the Appendix 1 of the report, it kind of sets out just how things are going to unfold over the next 12 to 18 months. So you'll see how that goes. So at this point, I think that's what I wanted to mention. So we're going to be moving very briskly, so stay tuned. And we are setting up a growth website so people can follow all these growth related reports. There's going to be a lot of material. We're going to boil it down for everyone and then try to make the decision making as easy and transparent as possible. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. I would just wonder if I could get Mr. Deloy just to expand upon the reasons why growth happens. You get a lot of residents who say, we don't want to grow. We want to stay small. and think that we have the option of as council to say that. So could you please take a few moments just to explain to the residents the pressure that Innisfil is under and the expectations that are upon our municipality to grow our population, and hence why good planning is so important and sustainable development is so important to our future goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deloitte.
So, Your Worship, a considered growth program is essential to community well-being and community prosperity. And so when we talk about growth, so basically Simcoe County is being called upon to accept another 200,000 residents by 2051. So there is a lot of pressure emanating from not only the Greater Toronto area, but just this area is getting its own footing in terms of growth pacing. So we are going to be pulling it together, and we need to make sure that when we grow sensibly. We don't lose the things that make Innisfil a special place: our lakes, our trees, our valleys, and certainly the agricultural lands, as was mentioned. And we need to also make sure that residential growth does not outstrip the employment growth. We need to have jobs. And so part of the growth strategy will be a significant increase in employment, and we'll be focusing that, of course, along the Highway 400 corridor, Innisfil Heights, and in Orbit. So we're looking at all of the above, but basically health and well-being of a community and growing at the right pace with the right infrastructure in place leads to community prosperity. And so growing together is really about prospering together. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councillor Arsadi?
Thank you. Thank you to Councillor Ices for pulling this item. I'm happy to see that there's going to be virtual workshops and public engagement. I believe that's scheduled for October 20th. Also, just and maybe Mr. Deloitte can help me to understand the settlement boundary expansion, where the county can allocate in areas outside of existing settlement boundaries. And it states in here that as a result, many property owners are not likely to be satisfied with the outcomes of the MCR exercise. Does that mean that there is any impact of looking at annexation, or maybe you could explain this to help me to understand this part of it? Thank you.
Ms. Nordstrom?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, to Councillor Orsadi's question. The reference in the report to speaks to the number of settlement area expansion requests that have been received. The county is tracking that, as are we. And within Innisfil, there are numerous land holdings where there's a request that's been made to consider as part of a settlement area expansion if one is warranted. So through this county MCR process, the county will be looking at giving us growth numbers, both residential population and employment growth numbers. And then we are looking at what our land needs are. And if we do need to grow, then we start looking at where does it make sense to grow. And so in this report, we sort of set out, there is a framework within which we would be looking to recommend where growth should go. And one being, our primary settlement area of Alcona is where the majority of growth should go. And as a result of that framework that's already in place at the provincial, county, and within our local OP, there will likely be landowners who have put in those requests to be considered for a settlement boundary expansion within Innisfil that will not see a settlement boundary expansion that includes those lands that they're requesting to be considered. So we're just trying to put that out there in terms of balancing expectations as to what this process would look like. With respect to annexation, this isn't looking to or speaking to annexation.
This is the county growth numbers are specific to the county municipalities, and we're looking at the growth numbers being accommodated within Simcoe County itself. So,
thank you. Follow up, Councillor Arsadi.
Thank you. Yes, Your Worship. Just a comment on the agricultural review and the provincial mapping. You know, I, like many residents, are always concerned with the loss of any additional agricultural land. You know, as many developers buy land, agricultural land, then they rent it out and they just hold and they wait to be able to speculate when they can start building on it. But you know, as many residents, it doesn't matter who owns it. It's really important to keep that agricultural land protected.
Thank you. Any other comments? I just wanted to make a couple of comments. One of them is in regards to, I think, what Councillor Orsatti was talking about, and that is on June 8th, when the statutory public meeting happened at the County of Simcoe. I think there was a lot of gasps because there was a lot of presentations and people putting forward, you know, requests for expansions, settlement area expansions that the lower tier municipalities hadn't even heard of yet, or at least from the political level, maybe the staff had, I don't know. But I think the important message here is that there is a whole bunch more people who want it than there is a requirement for land. So there's going to be some important decisions to make. And then the other important message is going to be, it's our decision. It's going to be the lower tiers decision. Am I right, Ms. Nordstrom, that the county will give us numbers, but where those numbers actually go is within the realm of the decision making of the lower tier?
ultimately, yes, Mayor, that's kind of the channel, the communication channel that the county has said is their preferred way of moving through this, is to say, here are the numbers, and then we look at what our land needs are, and then we, through this process, go back to the county and say, this is where we think growth needs to be accommodated. However, ultimately, it is the county's process and the county's decision that at the end of the day, but they are looking for our input and our local area input so that we can look at where do we want to preserve farmland, and where do we want to preserve our green spaces, and where do we want to see growth, and where can we service growth, and all of those considerations that Leo Deloitte's report already put into a framework previously before council with that growth framework. So all of those pieces that feed into it, that's what we have the local input to advise on that and advise the county as to where we want to see that growth happen.
Thank you, Ms. Nordstrom. So yeah, because if somebody did happen to see the June 8th meeting, just because a developer or their consultant came up and said, this is what we want, doesn't mean it's all going to happen. In fact, it's not all going to happen, because there was way many requests than would exceed the amount of growth that we will take. So I just didn't want anyone to get the impression just because someone asked they were going to get. And it is it's going to be a difficult decision, and I'm sure the lobbying will start shortly. So with that, we have a mover and a seconder. Is there any other comments before we vote on it? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. And there was final item, Councillor Nicol.
Hey, Your Worship, seconded by Councillor Waters. We do have a revised recommendation, and rather than just reviewing or receiving the one that's there, if we could share with council, and I could just kind of go through it a bit, if that's possible.
Yes. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you so much. I just want to draw everybody's attention to this. Bradford, West Gwillimbury, and Georgina councils have already shared these motions, which have passed, and they're getting more traction around the lake. As this council has previously discussed, it's not necessarily appropriate for us to tell another municipality how to do their jobs or how to spend their money. This project is different. With $16 million in federal funding, it will provide a great benefit to all of us around Lake Simcoe. The passing of the York Region Wastewater Act by the province will likely put a hold on any future environmental assessments for sewage plans. And unfortunately, this may include this facility as well. There obviously are many moving parts in the overall Upper York sewage solution. And this phosphorus recycling facility is a separate project and should be treated that way. While awaiting action on that, the overall sewage solution for the rest of York Region. I think it would be detrimental to all of our watershed should the phosphorus recycling facility be lumped in and paused with that large scale sewage solution. I believe that approving my revised recommendation and showing our support for this single project to remain outside of the scope of the Upper York Simcoe, solution will be of great benefit to every municipality and obviously the health of Lake Simcoe. I truly believe that the rest of council can see how important this is to show support and not to stall the phosphorus recycling facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you. I concur with Councillor Nicol on this one. This is a long time in the making. I think the phosphorus level issue started with the ladies of the lake many, many years ago. This was their main concern. When we enhanced our wastewater treatment plant years ago, this was again our concern. So I think this facility will work tremendously. And if you read the report, the impact will be astronomical if we get this up and running. I often have pilots and they say to me, you can always tell where we are in Lake Simcoe. We get to Cook's Bay and it's green. And they can see that from the air right away. So it's kind of we kind of joke about it, but it's sad that the phosphorus level has had such an impact in that particular area of the lake. And it also will help reduce a lot of algae in that area that I know happens every summer. So I'm glad that we're endorsing this. And I thank Councillor Nicol for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Van Berkel, and then I'll go to Councillor Waters.
Your Worship, I would concur with the recommendation. It should be separated from the sewage plant that they want to build there from York Region. I concur totally that this has been an ongoing thing, not just the last few years, but they talked about this 25, 30 years ago, and it still hasn't. It's not even in its first stages. So, thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you, Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I concur with the Deputy Mayor and our other councillors that this is a very, very active way of trying to resolve the phosphorus issue in Lake Simcoe, because that area of the lake has a lot of phosphorus in it, and this is nice to be able to see this go ahead. So I think the support that we give them is important, and I think hopefully, because it does have the grant funding associated with it, so hopefully everyone is on board with this and we can get this done sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I totally agree with this. And I go down to the lake at least once or twice a week, and there is no way I will go swimming in that lake. It's a terrible, the phosphorus, the algae that is in there. And I think that we really need to get this cleaned up. And if we all agree on this, I can see Mary Jane Brinko smiling down on us. So this is something that we really need to do, is clean up our lake. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Arsadi.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I just want to say thank you to Councillors Nicol and Waters for bringing this forward and making this recommendation. I think it's very important to support this project, and it benefits all of us. And we, it's something that we need to get behind and show our support. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Anyone else? I support it. Definitely, it's a no-brainer. When the old can wet models in the early 2000s, instead of the modeling was red, but the dark red was definitely down in that portion of the lake. My one little concern is number 4, when it says that we'll do what we can to support it. And are people going to, or is York Region going to say, oh, that means Innisfil wants to chip in? I'm just wondering, because I know, I don't know, I know Bradford supported it. I think Georgina supported it, but I don't know whether they use this exact language, and I wouldn't want someone like if everybody was chipping in, that would be one thing, but I just don't want us to be the only one that's offering that type of support. Councillor Nicol, can you give me an idea of what that number 4 meant?
Yes, Your Worship. Sorry, it is a bit vague, and I obviously took some of this from the previous motions that were brought forward as well too. So, support in principle, I guess, could be, maybe it could be tweaked, just that we do support this. We want this to come through. This is good for the entire environment and for the lake. Is it a monetary value? I don't know that, but if that's something that came forward, where, as you said, all the municipalities around the lake were to come forward, that would possibly be something that council may be able to get behind.
So I'm wondering if we might, and can I just offer suggestion, endorse as opposed to support? Does that work with everyone? Okay. Yeah, and I'm with Councillor Nicol. I don't like saying, hey, you build this and you pay for it to another municipality, because I don't think it's our place. But I do know that federally, there's been a lot of attention paid on Lake Simcoe, and provincially as well. And I can't see why something this important, and it's been proved it's that important. It was a couple of years ago, they had the competition down in the Holland Marsh with all these different teams from around the world to come up with the best option for this phosphorus reduction there, and I think it is gathering a lot of momentum, and I think now is a good time to jump on the bandwagon. So thank you again to Councillor Nicol and Councillor Waters. All in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. And now we will rise back into formal council, and that would be moved by Councillor Sadi and seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That is carried. And next we will consider adopting everything from the Committee of the Whole, the recommendations from Committee of the Whole. Councillor Fowler, Councillor Waters, all those in favor? That is carried. And we have received no notices of motion. And next I'll go to announcements. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. As Councillor Fowler alluded to, I just want to let you know that my son Wyatt and I focused our pitching cleanup area on the Shorters Beach area, the Guilford Beach area, the boat launch, and the parking lot. Picked up a few bags, but nowhere near what we had done in the past, which is great. We also bought many dozens of smile cookies from the cooks down Tim Hortons and distributed them. Most of them went out the drive-through window just randomly, so that was great. Shared a few with the Rotary. And although it took some real dedication, I worked hard to produce a bunch of empties and supply those to the Innisfil Rotary as well on the weekend. So we've been busy this week, but we've taken care of a lot of things. And just lastly, I just got invited to the South Simcoe Theatre's annual general meeting on Saturday morning at 10. And I know that there's also the art, steamroller art going on at the Cookstown Library at 10 o'clock on Saturdays as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Did I see other hands? I'm sorry. Full screen. Where are you all? There you are, Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. A bit of a sad note from Ward 1 and all of Innisfil. On August 19th, we lost Michael Jacobs. He passed away on that day at RVH, and he was known as a volunteer for different sports leagues as his kids grew up. He's also the husband of Jeanette Lucic, who has wonderfully started the Be Contemporary art gallery in Stroud and is very involved in the town's art committee as well. So a sad note, this Saturday will be his celebration of life there at St. Paul's Anglican Church in Barrie, and there'll be visitation there. And then the service will start at 2, so I think the visitation is before that. So there'll be some information on the website, but I just wanted to share that, and condolences to Jeanette on the loss, and also Innisfil lost a really great resident. So I wanted to share that with everyone.
Thank you so much for that, Councillor Ices. I saw some other hands. Deputy Mayor?
I don't want to be on the downbeat, but yes, we did have a celebration of life for Mary Jane Brinkles this past Sunday. It was very well attended, and I'm sure she'll be missed for her contribution towards Lake Simcoe and the beginning of Ladies of the Lake. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Orsatti.
I just wanted to thank Councillor Ken Fowler and the pitching committee for all their efforts, and to all the residents who throughout Innisfil were cleaning up ahead of time. And you know, they really, it's really hard to do and heartbreaking when you clean it up and then someone throws a bag out in the road, but it always tends to happen. But the efforts are greatly appreciated. Unfortunately, physically, I was not able to participate in that this year, but I did make purchases of Smile cookies and drop them off to the Rotary at the Stroud Arena and thank them for their efforts, and contributed my husband's contribution of his bottles. And anyway, and it's just a great community that, you know, the cookies support our libraries, and thank you to the Tim Hortons in Cookstown that generously donates their money from the Small cookies back into the Cookstown Library. And it's so, you know, greatly appreciated, and all the efforts of everyone. So I just want to say thank you. It was wonderful to see, and it just makes everyone proud, whether you're able to participate or cheer people on. It's all important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? I just wanted to thank everyone who supported, participated in, volunteered at the Mayor's Golf Tournament this year. It was held a week ago last Monday, and although it's called the Mayor's Golf Tournament, it should be called the Staff of Innisfil, especially Karen Shea's Golf Tournament, because they do all the hard work and had an amazing year. Our sponsors were amazing, particularly our partner sponsor, which was Friday Harbor. We made $69,000 at our golf tournament this year. So just an amazing day. And I particularly thank all of staff who were there and volunteered their time sitting on a hole, particularly Mr. Melanishan, who had to sit with me all day on the putting contest. So any other announcements? I would ask Mr. Melanishan, anything from the good of this community? Oh, sorry. First, I'll go to Councillor Waters, then Mr. Melanishan. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Considering you're talking about the golf tournament, I want to apologize dearly to Councillor Ices for being an anchor on our team. He was the true star on our team, plus our other half of our team did a wonderful job, but I was a true anchor. I think I lost more balls in that game than I think when I first started golfing. So it wasn't a very, very proud day for me, but the cause was excellent and it was a gorgeous day. And the view from Friday Harbor, I was really quite surprised how high it is, and the parts of Innisfil you can even see all the way up to Oro Medonte. So again, I apologize, Kevin Ices, for being the anchor on our team.
Councillor Ices.
I do need to comment on that. It was a great day, and I thought staff made a comment when Councillor Waters and I on a tee off shanked one into the bush that it was really obvious that we weren't schmoozing with developers on the golf course. So thank you for your team play there at Councillor Waters. And I never ran into Councillor Nickel on the course, but I see he beat us with his team. So maybe next year we'll do better.
Thank you. And I know the reason, Councillor Waters, that Councillor Ices was so knew that land so well is because he used to farm it. So he's been on that land before, so he knew where the woods were. All right. So sorry, Mr. Melanishin, anything for the good of the corporation?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think we've covered all bases this evening, and thank you for council's support to staff. We try our best, and there are missteps, and we appreciate your consideration and the community's consideration in taking that to account, the especially trying times the last year has brought us under a global pandemic. So thank you for council, and I think we're good for the evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the next is adjournment, or sorry, the confirming bylaw. I don't know why I always forget that one. Moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Councillor Orsatti. All those in favor? That is carried. And finally, adjournment, which is moved by Councillor Nickel and seconded by Councillor Fowler. Thank you, everybody. And I look forward to a nice fall and seeing everyone shortly. And thanks to all of staff who were on here tonight and maybe didn't even have to turn their camera on, but I know you're there to support us if we needed you. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night, everyone.
All in
Night,
favor.
everybody.
Night, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Night.
Night.